Hello, horror fans. Welcome back to Jay versus Horror. Guys, it's another episode of the Horror Hound Showdown. It's season two, episode two. And today we have a special guest. We have Russell De Silva. Now, this guy is a major movie critic in Bollywood. He's a lot of fun. He does some great interviews. Russell, why don't you tell the people about yourself?
Hi, Jay. It's a pleasure being here. Your podcast is amazing. And I'm a Bollywood journalist. I cover all the movies that release Friday to Friday. I review them. I'm a movie critic. I also cover the box office. And I interview the celebs, the Bollywood celebs. If anybody's into Bollywood movies, so I interview all the major actors here: Shah Rukh Khan, Deepika Padukone, Aishwarya Rai. And yeah, I got a chance. I do review Hollywood movies too. And once in a while, I do interview certain Hollywood celebs. I got a chance to interview Christian Bale and Andy Serkis when they had come to promote Jungle Book. So yeah, that's it about me. But I am privileged and honored to be on your podcast, Jay. It's really fun.
Man, we're happy to have you. And Russell is coming to us all the way from Mumbai, India. So we're on like a 10-hour, 10.5 hour time difference. So this has been a very
Yeah, yeah.
interesting scheduling, right?
Yeah. Thankfully, I'm a bit of a nocturnal creature myself, so I did not mind staying awake a bit.
And today's topic is top 10 creature features. And Russell, we're going to start with you. What do you have for number 10?
For number 10, I have this lovely indie flick called Dark Was the Night, starring Kevin Durant. I really enjoy a good indie horror, and I'm actually a sucker for indie horror. And when I did the first time when I saw this, it hit me because I like new creatures, and the creature in this town, a seedy town, a sleepy kind of town, a sheriff who doesn't have to do much, and suddenly the town goes in topsy turvy because these creatures come out of the woods. And the best part of this, I like good build-ups in my horror movies. And the build-up was so nice because for some time you did not know what this creature was doing. You did not see the creature for some time. And when the creature was unleashed, it was total mayhem. And spoiler alert: the climax in the church was something that really shakes you. So I really like this creature. The creature is blood curdling. The cast is really good. Kevin Durant does a really good job. So does Lucas Haas, and good effects given the budget. Good practical effects given the budget. So all round a decent, pretty decent creature flick. Dark was the night.
Yes, I like that one a lot too. And guys, I think that one and the one I have at number 10 can both be found on Tubi TV, some of those free sites that you can browse and watch stuff for free with commercials. So definitely check these out because at number 10, I have one that's kind of similar. It's a low budget film and it's called Splinter from 2009. It has a great little cast, basic plot about two couples who run into each other. One of them are kind of a Bonnie and Clyde couple, and the other one are just on vacation. They end up holed up at a gas station where something has gone awry, and there is this black or organic, spiky, oily looking creature that attacks the building. It's already killed the gas station attendant, and they are forced inside and they have to fight for their lives, figure out how to stop this thing from infecting them, and also figure out how to get out of this gas station. Come up with some kind of plan here. So this is one of my favorites from 2009, and it comes in at number 10. That's Splinter. Have you seen this one?
I have, and I wouldn't like to comment much about it because I may or may not have it on my list going ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you got for number 9?
For number 9, I have this flick called Deep Rising. This was before Stephen Sommers, became a big name director with the Mummy franchise and those kind of movies. It's, you could see the beginning of Stephen Sommers over here is that he really knew, or rather, should I say, he really understands creatures. Because if you go to see Mummy, also, it's a good family adventure, but there's a lot of creature stuff going on there, even though obviously that's not horror. In Deep Rising, what I liked is that I like anti-heroes, and Treat Williams and Kevin J. O'Connor, they make for really good anti-heroes. So it's a lot of action. There's a lot of action going on in this ship, and there's this very vicious monster. You never see the monster in its entirety, but as the whole. But you see tentacles coming out. You see uh, you just see how the monster is lurking underwater. So you could basically think this is like a shark, but a very abnormal kind of shark. So I like how Stephen Sommers plays with the entire uh, sea scenario. Also, there's an amazing scene during a party before we get to see our heroes coming in. There's this Asian woman. She's sitting on a commode, and the monster just sucks her right in. You know that you're in for some crazy, crazy, crazy stuff when that happens.
Yeah, this is a good
Yeah,
one. Action, comedy, and a creature feature, and you can't get better than Treat Williams. I always say I think that Treat Williams gets a bad rap. He should have more
yeah,
roles. I love his Tales from the Crypt episode where he plays the con man who is like a reverse Black Widow. He kills old women and takes their insurance. He's so cold hearted and mean in that.
yeah, yeah. He does make for a good anti-hero if you go to Savin in this one. He's like he's a thief, and he's just in it for a paycheck. But he's always a reluctant hero, but he saves the day.
All right. At number nine, I have one. I wrestled with this one a little bit because I wanted to stay away from human beings that become creatures, even like Jason Voorhees or zombies or things like that. But
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I came up with Jeepers Creepers because to me it is a creature, even though it does kind of have like a humanoid shape to some extent. It is a creature. Uh, and it's from 2001. This is an era where, Freddy and Jason are pretty much at the end of their run. We had like one more good, decent film, I guess, Freddy versus Jason. Uh, but yeah, it was nice to have something on the screen on at theaters that where they were trying to start something new, some kind of a new franchise, some kind of a new iconic character to carry on, that kind of stuff. And I remember going to see this one and not having much hype behind it when I went to go see it. I wasn't sure what it was about, but it turned out to be one of my favorites of that year. Love Jeepers Creepers from 2001.
I love this flick too. In fact, I like its sequel also. In fact, I like its sequel a little better because it almost feels like a creature in a slasher scenario. If you get what
Oh
I say,
yes,
yes.
yeah, I
But
would agree too. The second one is a better put together story almost because
uh,
this one just kind of sets up some story ideas, and then you have like the Terminator scene at the end where he breaks into the police station and just gets what he
yeah, yeah,
wants. But in
yeah.
part two, it's more of a slasher because it's high school kids. They're trapped on that bus, and he just picks them off one by one. I agree. I like it a lot.
And I almost went for this. In fact, I was conflicted whether I should at number 10 whether I should go for Dark Was the Night or Jeepers Creepers, but then the name somehow another Victor Salva, and I said, let me go for Victor Dark Was the
That's the one
Night.
thing. That's the one
Yeah,
thing
that
about the
is.
creeper films that kind of puts
Yes,
people off.
yes.
Yeah.
That's the creeper behind the Jeepers Creepers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you have for number eight?
Okay, for number 8, I have a movie, but I would be surprised if anyone has not seen this film, The Mist. So yeah, I love. In fact, I feel Frank Darabont. Nobody gets Stephen King as well as, or maybe just a few get Stephen King as well as he does. Because if you see his filmography, uh, Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, and The Mist, all Stephen King adaptations, and he really captures that essence of Stephen King. This is the first proper Stephen King horror that he adapts, and my God, the entire I love trapped. I love scenarios where characters or protagonists are trapped, and the way they are trapped inside that building with the creatures all roaming around as the mist envelopes everything, and then people are contemplating what to do, what not to do. That is very good. The creatures are terrifying. The creatures are slimy. The creatures are terrifying. There's a lot of good jump scares over here. And as the creatures continue attacking the people, we also see the true test of character of human beings over here. That's where a director like Frank Darabont, I feel, his uh, his expertise come to the fore, because many creature features they are a lot of fun, but to tap into human emotions, to tap into human psychology, he does it really well. And obviously the twist, nobody can get over that. You are like, oh my god, just if he waited for 2 minutes longer, it would have been a real happy ending. But I think so the ending is what really makes this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I went to go see this film, and I remember thinking when I went to go see it that what I'm really iffy about, because it had a good cast, what I'm really iffy about going in is the creatures. What are they going to look
Mm.
like? What are the effects going to be like? And so when you start watching it, I'd say, at a certain point, you stop caring. Even though I do think the effects work, they are CGI heavy, but I think they work. But at a certain point, you stop caring because there's all this other stuff going on, and in my opinion, Marcia Gay Harden is the far more terrifying thing than anything that's in that mist. Her
Yes, yes,
character,
yes.
was Miss Carmody. She is absolutely psychotic, and she's about to cause all these people inside this place to just start murdering each other for nothing. And then, yeah, you're right. The twist, of course, the great Walking Dead connection that it shares with all those great actors from the show,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Frank
yeah.
Darabont. Yeah, that's an awesome pick. At number 8, I have Mimic from 1997.
Oh.
I think this might even be the first Guillermo del Toro film that I saw, but I don't think when I was 16 or 17 years old, when I first saw this, I even realized that he was the one that directed it. Later on, I saw his other work, and then realized he directed Mimic too, and was like, oh well, that makes perfect sense. But uh, yeah, great cast here too. James Brolin and Mira Sorvino and a bunch of other people, and it's there's a few from this era like Relic and stuff like that, but for me, this is the one that worked the best, had the best cast and the best creature, which is basically an insect that is so large it kind of mimics a human being, and it can even like it looks like a guy standing there in a cloak if you see him off in the darkness, until it's too late, and then it looks like a vampire that's picking you up and carrying you off somewhere to eat you. Uh, but yeah, I enjoy that film a lot, and I like how you were talking about how when characters get trapped in films, the second part of this movie is pretty much like that. Charles S. Dutton is down there with them too, and some other people, and they're all trapped in this subway system at that point, and they're trying to not only fight these creatures but also kind of figure out what the hell is going on with them. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorites from '97, Mimic.
Uh, it's very, very good choice, Jay. I'll have to admit I've never been able to finish Mimic, no matter how many times I've tried to, because I suffer from catseridophobia, cockroach phobia. So
Oh,
that's something that, yeah, really gets me. I mean, uh, my cockroach phobia is extreme. So yeah, I'm admitting it on your show. So I couldn't ever sit through it because of that reason. But yeah, Guillermo del Toro. I mean, there's a few things that man can never do wrong.
right.
Yeah.
So, what do you got for number 7?
For number 7, I have your earlier pick, Splinter. Like I said, it would may or may not be on the list. Splinter, like you said, is this lovely low budget flick. And when in a low budget flick, when you do not when the budget is not apparent, when it doesn't come across, when it doesn't strike you that okay, this is low budget, and that is why you have to probably make some room for suspension of disbelief, then you know that the creators have done a really good job, because they have put in a lot of effort into the other things to make the film look polished despite the shortcomings that they have been handed. And just the smallish kind of creature that encounters things out of nowhere, uh, it kind of gets you thinking that there is something about the little things that you should not take them lightly, because they can really get to you. Because First of all, it starts like this Alfred Hitchcock scenario. If you, why I'm giving an Alfred Hitchcock analogy over here is because many Alfred Hitchcock movies, whether they be The Bird, Psycho, basically is horror stuff, they start with nothing related to the actual premise. And then all of a sudden, things take a complete somersault. And then you're thrust into what the movie is actually about, its core essence. And this is the same thing about Splinter. This couple, they are suddenly accosted by these people who are obviously the villains of the story. And at that time, you're not sure. You think so. Okay, there's something interesting going to happen over here. Is this going to be a simple a couple encountering a madman and they have to run away from that person? And then all of a sudden, an accident happens, and then they have to go into this gas station, and then the movie really takes off. So the director sets you up, but you really do not know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, it takes a U turn. And that's Splinter. That Splinter is really scary because that's not the end of the thing. Like creatures get you, like in The Mist or in many other films, the creature gets you and that's it. But over here, the creature doesn't get you and that's it. Over here, if the creature gets you, and if the person that the creature gets is someone close to you, then you go up against that person, and that is the quandary over here that I think so the makers put us in. It's not only you're not only fighting the creature, but you're fighting the people that the creature infects, and that person could be close to you. So I think so that's a really good script.
Yeah, I like it a lot, and I totally agree. There's some scenes in that movie where, after the creature kind of starts, spreading throughout the body of a dead person that it's, attacked. There's some terrifying scenes there where it's like throwing the body around like a puppet, just all different kinds of ways and against glass windows and stuff.
Yep, yep.
Uh, so
This is a flick you could watch again and again. This is something I never get tired of watching.
yeah, it's a good one, and I think, like I said, guys, you can catch. I know Splinter, and I think the other one, Dark, was the Night. Uh, yeah, I think you can catch both those on Tubi for free. If you guys can cruise over there and check it out, you can watch those movies anytime you want to. So moving on to number 7, this one is also on Tubi. You can check it out pretty much anytime you want to for free. And it is Leviathan from 1989. I love this movie to death for a lot of reasons. There was a lot of like Alien and the Thing ripoffs after those movies came out, and then there were three that came out pretty close together that were set in the water. We had Deep Star Six, The Abyss, and Leviathan, all within a couple years of each other. And Leviathan was just always my favorite, and it's got a great cast. I mean, Peter Weller, Hector Elizondo, Ernie Hudson, Daniel Stern. It goes on, and Richard Crenna, even from the Rambo movies, is in this. And it's just a great creature feature film. It does take a lot from The Thing. It does take a lot from Alien in the sense that they are isolated with this creature on board and have to figure out how to either destroy it with the tools that they have available, or they have to figure out how to get out of the bottom of the ocean, which is nearly impossible. And also, there's a setup with Meg Foster here as kind of the company woman who tells them that it's impossible for them to move because there's a large storm coming, and there's all kinds of great stuff in this film, except for the end. There's one thing I hated at the end of this movie. They fixed it in Deep Blue Sea with LL Cool J, but in this film, I just found it really terrible that they did what they did to Winston from Ghostbusters at the end of this film.
Yeah, I dig you. I dig you over there. I do. I completely agree with that. But
Uh,
yeah, a lot of credit goes to the director, George P. Because I feel that this guy just understands blockbuster entertainment. He understands block. He understands giving the audience a good time.
right, because you could easily tear this film apart. You could look at it and say, look, even the set pieces, this is kind of like Alien underwater, but you could just look and see that it's a cheaper version of that. But at the same time, it works. Everything works. There's nothing that doesn't work, and I think the creature really sells it. And man, they raided the pantry when it came to actors on this. Like every actor who'd ever done a good second role, and then they went and got RoboCop. So they did great, I thought.
Yeah, yeah, they did. They did.
Uh, so what do you got for number six?
Number six, I have a pretty new flick. We have been going about some classics. This is pretty new on the list. The Cabin in the Woods. I do like how they turned everything on its head. This is when it comes to subverting genre tropes. I think so. Few films have ever done it better than The Cabin in the Woods. They subvert the slasher tropes. They completely dismiss as slasher tropes. They subvert creature tropes. They brought in every creature you can imagine. I know we were not going to do zombies. We were not going to do werewolves, but because they are in their own subgenres. But there is something. Cabin in the Woods is not a werewolf flick. It's not a slasher flick. It's not a zombie flick. It is everything together. So when you're bringing all these creatures together, it obviously has to come under the subgenre of creature feature. And I just love the entire premise of Joss Whedon, how he conceptualized this entire premise. They, if you people are so obsessed, with pop culture that if pop culture actually were to become a reality, then they would want things to follow the norms of pop culture, and that is where a corporation could actually exist, where they could feed people their deepest, darkest desires. And obviously, taking that premise, it could be a very arty flick, but credit to the makers for turning it into such a fun popcorn flick. And obviously, you have Sigourney Weaver over here who gives another kick-ass performance when it comes to her doing just playing the badass, be it in a positive or a negative role. It's few people can compare to her. And that the last scenario when they come into this establishment, and the two people who survive at the end, the guy and the girl, because only the virgin had to survive, which is a slasher trope. And then they realize that the guy has also survived, and then they are given a choice because they have to follow that norm. And she decides to unleash all the creatures. You know that everything had just hit the ceiling at that time. So, on all in all, a very good subversion of all the horror tropes over there.
Yeah, I like this one a lot too. And I think there aren't a lot of great like werewolf movies, so sometimes I look for that creature in other films, and this was a pretty good one, I thought. And they didn't say. I don't think they actually said like right out it was a werewolf, but I guess you could just look at it as a giant dog creature. But whatever.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
the other thing, the merman was pretty awesome, right?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. My bad, I did not mention that. That is pretty awesome. And in fact, I think so. That was a good homage to Creature from the Black Lagoon also.
Right. And who
Yeah.
could forget the comedy team of Whitford and Jenkins? Those are.
Hmm.
I mean, it
Yes,
just
yes, yes.
people
And
say, well, they
uh,
didn't expect them to be funny, and I'm like, well, Bradley Whitford from Billy Madison and Richard Jenkins was in Step Brothers. They've done it. They've done comedy before, you know.
hmm. And I also
But
like how, since I don't think so, since Scream did it with Drew Barrymore's major character, was just bumped off midway. You expected uh, Chris Hemsworth to probably be. I mean, he's the jock, and since they were subverting everything, you expected them to subvert the trope of the jock, and probably the jock survives. Maybe not survives, but at least lasts till the end. And then that scene where he takes his bike and that background music plays, and you just think, so, okay, Chris Hemsworth is going to do a very Tory thing over here. And then crash, bang. You're like, okay. So,
yes, that was very good, man. I like it a lot, and it was smart of them. I mean, if I understand correctly, what they did with this was they held it a little bit because they knew he was doing Thor, and Thor was fixing to come out, and they actually held it until right. He was, I think, it was after Thor came out. They a couple months later after it was out, and so it really, pushed that a little further with that cliche because you totally expected him to live. Then you're like, oh, he's Thor.
yeah,
But
smart
yeah.
thinking.
So uh At number six, I have a recent film that I struggled with this one too, but I like it a lot, man. The reason why I struggle with recent ones sometimes is because they're so fresh in your brain that you wonder if you're overthinking it. But A Quiet Place from 2018, I like this one a lot, and I think that John Krasinski's performance is very underrated in this. He's one of the best dads ever in horror movie history, and I'm not talking about like Jack Torrance or Cherry O'Quinn in The Stepfather. He's actually a good dad in horror movie history.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you say.
and
Because when it comes to horror, the definition of good dad is pretty warped. So you got to specify
Yes,
it over there.
yes, and the creatures, I thought they were good enough to sell what they were doing. I'm not too crazy about the sequel. I kind of liked it the way they just left it. I know that there's a sequel on the way. It was supposed to be out this year, but with the virus out there, it wasn't able to be released. But I still am anxious to see it, even though it's not going to have Krasinski in it. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be the same.
Mm, mm.
He is
Yeah.
directing though, if I believe he directed the first one too. That's another thing too. Like he put so much work into that film that it's just, you can see it almost in the characters, just how much he cared about the story and everything. And so yeah, I really enjoyed that one a lot. What do you got for number six?
Number six, I have this another indie low budget movie, which is it's passed under the radar and not many people know about this. Infestation. It came out in 2009, if I'm not mistaken. It also falls in the horror comedy subgenre, but I would put it under creature feature because it has the one thing that most people hate, and they take that thing and they just extrapolate those fears, which are bugs. Most pets, everybody will like. I've given you my phobia of cockroaches, but everybody hates some kind of bug or another. And
Right.
this movie takes every bug imaginable and turns it into your worst nightmare. And the best thing is that some movies do not. Every movie I do not feel needs a background where things came from, how things originated. I know the superhero films have spoiled people that way. Everything needs to have an origin story, but this doesn't. This just starts off this uh, guy Cooper. He's a slacker. He's a telemarketer. He's having a horrible day at his workplace. So he's basically a very relatable guy to anyone. And he's the kind of guy everybody dreams of. Every office slacker dreams of being the hero one day, going and saving the day, getting the girl. He's exactly that kind of guy. And exactly he's thrust into that kind of scenario. He gets up and boom, the world has gone to pieces. The world has fallen to pieces and giant bugs are everywhere, and the rest of the movie is a roller coaster ride. Again, I feel the effects are done given the budget constraints, not bad. Bugs are known to be slimy, bugs are known to be gooey, and they bring out that feeling. These are probably not the best bugs you will see on screen, but if you compare them to 80s films, then I think so. When on that scale, the effects are pretty good, and it gets out that slimy, gooey feel of the bugs. And the climax is really good. It's something kick-ass. They're going into this queen's lair, and they have to bomb the queen's lair. So that is there. And also at the end, there's a little bit of a feeling of the mist because things are completely silent, and then you hear a lot of rumbling in the background. So you do not know whether the army is coming in to save them, or you do not know whether more bugs are coming. So it leaves things on a cliffhanger. Overall, I really like this movie. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen it, and I agree with you totally. The effects aren't the best. I would say they're like on Sci-Fi Channel level
Yes,
with the
yes.
effects, but the story works, and it's a fun movie. So that's really all you can ask for with these type of films, right?
Yeah, you need to offset things a bit. Like if you have the mist and if you have the cabin in the woods and these things, then you need to offset them with these low budget indie flicks a bit, if you're making a list, I feel, so that you get everything over there.
Right, and at least you're suggesting some movies along that line. When you're suggesting that movie, that's something that not everybody has seen. So it's something that when they listen to this, they can go check
Yeah,
it out. It's something new.
yeah, yeah.
Which I think that was actually number five. I said number six, but I think that was actually number five. And for me, I know I'm
Okay.
about these last five that I have are about to get into stuff that probably everybody's seen that wanted to see. And at number five, I have The Descent from 2005, and it's just a great film from Neil Marshall about a female group of cave divers doing what they call spelunking, and they run into some creatures that have, I guess, never been seen before. I won't say never been seen before. I'll say if they've been seen before, the people who that saw them didn't get to tell anybody about it. So uh, I remember like the first time I saw this one, I didn't know exactly where it was going because I don't think I'd seen a trailer for it when I watched it. It was right after it came out, and I remember the scene where they finally reveal the creatures, like it's standing behind her in the dark, and the camera pans over, and you're like, "Oh wow, it's right there!" And you're screaming. It's one of those moments where you scream at the screen to let this fictional character know there's something behind them. And
Yes, yes.
very good film, great thriller, and depending on which ending to this film you like better, I think it has two endings. There's the British ending, which is for people who are into nihilistic endings, kind of not very fun endings, and then there's the American ending, which allows it to have, of course, the Descent 2. I don't think Descent 2 makes much sense with that British ending, but yeah, that's what I had at number five, the Descent.
Uh, Again, I may or may not have this on my list, so I'll save my opinions for a bit later.
All right, I think you're at number four now, right?
Yes, at number four, I have a cult. When it comes to cult favorites, I think so. Things don't get more cultier than this film. The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982. Kurt Russell, also my namesake, but that's not the reason he's one of my favorite heroes. But yeah, uh, a big box office flop upon its release. Uh, I really, but then, like they say, every film, and being a trade analyst, we have a saying over here in the trade that every film has its own journey. And if it doesn't work on the at the box office, but if it's a good film, it will eventually find its audience. And I think the thing personifies that adage because everything you could ask for in a very good horror film, just not a creature feature, but just a grade horror film. The thing has, first of all, that score by Ennio Morricone. Oh my God, goosebumps. Then the build up, they at the very first shot, this helicopter is chasing this dog, and like the dog, a dog is one creature nobody wants to see getting harmed. Like when in the movies, everybody says, "I don't care if every character dies. You better not harm the dog." So that's the thing, and it takes the most lovable creature probably on this planet, and it turns that creature into something that could give people nightmares, or maybe even think twice about adopting a dog. I think so. That is next level horror, like Alfred Hitchcock did in The Birds. You would never think so. Birds are such nice creatures. People have them in cages, and then Alfred Hitchcock turned it around and made us think. What if you were in the cage and the birds were attacking you? The same thing John Carpenter does over here, and people may think twice about having a dog. And then that entire build-up, like I said, I like characters where they are trapped. Again, they are all trapped over here in this scientific center in the middle of nowhere, in this science center in the middle of nowhere. And it is thrust upon Kurt Russell to find out who is infected, who's not infected. And at that time, how everybody begins distrusting each other. Nobody knows anymore who is their friend, who's their enemy. And one scene that stands out for me in this movie is the blood testing scene. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, where he has the blood sample and he's testing it, who's infected, and then suddenly that sample, just jumps out. Uh, that is a moment of perfect direction, perfect writing, and perfect editing. It's everything just synchronizes into something that is a masterpiece. So yeah, the thing is a masterpiece of horror, and creature features don't get better than this.
Oh man, I love that scene because there's the sense there where they test a couple of them and nothing happens, and you almost kind of wonder, like, does he even know what he's really talking about here? But you
Yeah,
kind of feel like he does because you've seen it, the way it moves and kind of its biology and stuff. But then when he hits that one and it jumps, and man, then the couch flips over and there's, oh yeah, that's a great moment there. Great
yeah.
film. I'm not gonna.
Also,
I won't go too far
Also,
into it. Huh?
yeah, also because I think so, you won't go too far into it because you also may or may not have this on your list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will
Also,
say
Kurt, Kurt Russell, if I do, you don't mind me saying Kurt Russell, because like this, the typifying this laconic lone wolf kind of character, which Clint Eastwood used to do time and again, and we never got tired of seeing him. I think so. The only actor, or rather the hero, who managed to do it on screen since Clint Eastwood is Kurt Russell. He really typifies that laconic lone wolf character.
yeah, I like Kurt Russell. I just saw a thing the other day. They were talking about how Kurt Russell got cast in Tango and Cash, and how originally they wrote that for Stallone and Schwarzenegger, but Schwarzenegger didn't want to do it, and then they
Yeah.
moved on to Patrick Swayze, and Patrick Swayze wanted to do Roadhouse. It finally came to Kurt Russell, and what happened was that both The Thing and Big Trouble in Little China got ripped when they came out at the theater, but they
Mhm.
built such a massive fan following through video that Kurt was the next person they went to with that. He was the kind of the lone wolf cop, where Stallone was kind of the pretty boy cop. So yeah, it was interesting. But and then that movie was terrible. So the
Yeah.
movies that he was in that were great didn't make a lot of money, and then that one was terrible, and it did make like $80 million or something. But uh,
Yes.
moving on, number four, I have a pretty iconic film, I think, too, with another one of those type actors. It's Tremors from 1990. Fred Ward, Kevin Bacon. I think everybody's seen this film. It's for me, I loved it a lot because this was one of the first horror films where it was like the people in it were pretty common people. They weren't like extraordinary scientists or anything like that. These guys were just like ranch hands that ran into a giant, you know, graboid, I guess is what they call it, right, or a worm, and in the desert, and
Gra- Graboids. They were called graboids.
yeah, and I like the film. I mean, I like everything about it. It's one of those movies that I still put on probably a couple times a year, just watch and have a good time. One of the things I remember about it the most is when I was a kid, they used to show this on the cable channels a lot. We have a channel. I don't know if you guys have it there or not, but it's called TBS. They just show older films, anything 5, 10 years old. They'll show, and they showed this one repeatedly all the time. But they edited it, and that part where the worm breaks through the wall in Bert's basement, he says, "You broke into
Mhm.
the wrong gall darn rec room, didn't you?"
Many classic one-liners in this film.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's a great film and it's lots of fun. Tremors from 1990.
I love it. I love it.
All right. So what do you got at number three?
Okay, at number three, I had to just, I couldn't make a list of creature features without including something from the black and white era. Basically, the era that started this monster flicks. Now, most of these movies, whether it be The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, or whether it be also It Came From Beneath the Sea and all those films, they were more into the sci-fi mold. And then there was Creature from the Black Lagoon, but as decent as it doesn't hold up that well today. But this is one movie that I feel it, it could release in any era, and with a better, just a little bit of touch up on the effects, which were very good back then. Also, it would give any movie a run for its money, and that's them, uh, the movie with the giant ants,
Yes.
THEM. And so first of all, it came out at I do not know whether it was the height of the Cold War paranoia back then, but there was a Cold War paranoia back then, and then people were very interested to know what happens when uh, nuclear energy can be misused, and filmmakers really tapped into that fear. And I don't think so. No, any movie did it better than them, because you literally have ants, a kind of an insect. When it comes to bugs, I think so. There's one insect that very few people fear, unless it is those ants that you find in the Amazon jungle or something. When it comes to it's simple, normal ants, you squash them under your feet. Not I'm saying that everybody should squash ants. It's just that the ants are not very intimidating where bugs are concerned. And then they encounter this nuclear waste, and then they become these irradiated ants, and they become these giant killing machines. And I remember this scene where they are coming out of, I think so it was a cave. I've not seen this flick for some time, but I think so it was a cave in the desert. It happens in the New Mexico region. And a bunch of people, including some police sergeants and all, they were helpless in front of these creatures. And then there was another scene, I think it was at a diner, where these ants attack, and it was just not just a very fun flick, it was also a very well thought out movie, well planned, well thought out. And for that age, I think so the effects really hold up, because when you watch those movies, you don't want special effects like you watch in the Marvel movies. There's a charm to those effects. There's something about those stop motion kind of effects that you really enjoy. And a few movies did it better than them. Just a very enjoyable, very well created film.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. One that they used to show a lot here on some of the cable channels, they would have like Saturday afternoon or Saturday night double features, and they would have I remember the most was on like I was talking about that channel before, TBS, and they had Grandpa Munster from the Munsters, and he always did two creature features, and this was one that got shown probably made the rotation once every 2 or 3 months. It was a fun movie. I am moving on to number three. And at number three, I kind of was thinking the same thing you were here. So I went back and went with one of the classics. I picked The Blob from 1958 with Steve McQueen. And I love this film a lot. Now, I'm going to be honest. I love The Blob 1988 a lot too. And I probably am shamelessly going to have to admit that if I go back to rewatch one, it's probably the 88 version, but the 58 version is very good too. I think it holds its own, and it does have star power with Steve McQueen. And are the effects great? No, but for 1958, I think they're pretty good, especially with what we're talking about here, which is just a blob. It's not like there's a big intimidating creature, but they do find a way to make it scary. And I always All right, Russell, what do you have for number two?
For number two, I have a film that was on your list earlier. That's The Descent. I That entire scenario is so British horror. There hasn't been many creature features, I think so, in British horror, but this one really knocked it out of the park. Uh, Neil Marshall, you could say, has really announced himself to the world. He also did another very good movie, Dog Soldiers. I really like that one. But anyways, so when it comes to a group of people, uh, putting them in an outlandish setting, in an outlandish scenario, and then having them stalked by a creature or creatures, as in this case. I think Neil Marshall does that really well. These bunch of girls. Another good thing about this movie is that every character is likable. These bunch of women who go cave diving, and then they decide to go deeper and deeper into that cavernous terrain, so to speak. Everyone is likable, even the ones who get bumped off pretty fast, and the ones who remain to the end. And even though they have certain personal demons, and some of the women have a bit of friction and a bit of history between each other, but none of that ever wants you as an audience to see anyone getting bumped off. Like if you notice some slasher films, especially in the 80s, there's some character just annoy you, and you're like, okay, I wished a predator, I wish the killer gets this one the first. That's never there in The Descent. And plus the creatures, like I had said earlier, I like when new creatures are made. I think I had mentioned this for Dark Was the Night. I like when new creatures are formed, new creatures are made, and this creature was really haunting. It's almost like a family of creatures day in the cave. It reminded me somewhat of Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes. A family secluded from civilization and has learned to adapt by stalking people. In the same way, in this cave, this family of creatures have learned to adapt to their environment. And then when these people, these women, they encroach upon that environment, these ones are the outsiders, and they are like, "You've entered my home, and since you have entered my home, anything I do to you at this point in time is fair game. And along with that is also a very good just I would obviously it's not a mountaineering film, but the entire shots of how the women scale that entire cavernous surrounding and how they go deeper, and then finally how the survivor tries to escape the creatures and move out. I mean, you already mentioned there's an alternate ending. So that entire setting, Neil Marshall could have simply concentrated on the creatures and on the creature fun, but he also paid a lot of attention, a lot of detailing of how the women explore those caves. They almost seem like professionals. So you get a bit of Clint Eastwood's Iger sanction and vertical limit, as in how professionally they explore that cave. And then after some time, when the creatures start attacking them, all hell is unleashed, and it's a very, very fun.
Yeah, it's a great film. I like it a lot, and also good shout out there for Dog Soldiers. So if there are British creature features, Neil Marshall's the guy, right?
Yeah, Neil Marshall is definitely the guy. I'm surprised he hasn't done much since these two movies. I actually expected him to do a lot more after these two films.
Right. At number two, I have The Thing from 1982. We talked about this one already. I would just have to agree with everything you already said, and The Thing is a film that's so much fun because it adds layers of fear. There's isolation, there's paranoia, and there's also this insane creature that takes over everyone's. Basically, it's intrusive to a point where it takes away their persona themselves. It's one of the worst things you could possibly lose. And so I didn't want to use a lot of aliens. I didn't use a lot of dinosaurs because I thought about Jurassic Park even. But I didn't use Godzilla, anything like that. But I did kind of like take a knee on this one and use The Thing. It is an alien, but at the same time, the creature and the effects for the creature are so original and awesome that I don't really think you can discount it as a creature feature. Uh, but I'm gonna go ahead and do my number one, Russ, because you're the guest. So I wanted you to go first, and I'm gonna let you go last too. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock out my number one. At number one, I have The Fly from 1986. It's one of my favorite films from director David Cronenberg. I really believe this is his masterpiece film. Even though The Dead Zone and Videodrome and Scanners and Shivers and those are all great films. The Brood, but to me, The Fly is just far and above almost any theatrical creature feature that I saw as a kid. Uh, the performance from Jeff Goldblum is amazing. The effects are amazing, and it's a story that's romantic, it's sad, and it's terrifying. It has several different layers, just like The Thing, that make it work. Great performances from Gina Davis, also, and yeah, just a great film. That's what I have for number one, The Fly.
Excellent choice. It almost did make my list, but I do not know. I just somehow or another these 10 films. Uh, I may be just like watching them over the fly. Like if they come and I'm just passing the screen and I see one of these movies, I just like catching them a bit. But yeah, that takes nothing away from the fly. All due respect to it.
All right, man, it's the moment of truth. What do you got for number one?
But number one, I have Tremors. Now I know, yeah. So some people would be like, okay, it's a very good movie. It has a lot of action. There's a lot of fun. There's a new creature that was invented in Tremors, the graboids. But it's not probably as profound as the thing, or as profound as the mist, some other entries on the list, or some other entries just people would have in general. But the reason I have Tremors is because when creature features came about, like when those black and white movies came about, like you have the Blob on your list and I have them. Besides them making a very subtle commentaries about the times they were made in, they were purely made for one thing and one thing alone. That's entertainment. I feel creature features when it comes to horror, creature features or slashers. This kind of horror is purely there for entertainment. I welcome any other social commentary, political commentary, human psychology, and all these things that any other filmmaker may add to these movies. But when it comes to pure bang for your buck entertainment, I have come across few movies as fun and as gratifying as Tremors in any genre for that matter. Here in Bollywood, we have a saying. There's a famous movie called The Dirty Picture. It's actually not that dirty. It's a biopic, and the actress gives a famous dialogue. It's a very famous dialogue in Bollywood that says, "Movies are made for three reasons and three reasons alone: entertainment, entertainment, and entertainment." And
Mm,
that's what Tremors personifies. Uh, it has so many scenes that leave an indelible mark on your psyche. One of the scene you mentioned when one of the graboids come through the basement wall of this couple who I think so has a lot of guns for some reason. I think so they are one of those gun aficionados in America. They have stole a lot of guns, but they came in handy, so no complaint about that. Another scene that my favorite scene in Tremors is the one at a diner where the entire community is gathered over there when they come to know about these creatures, and then the tremors and then the graboids start attacking them. And first of all, the poor Asian guy, he gets it. He tries climbing on the mini refrigerator or something, and he gets it. Then this other young kid, his father, he tries going on different structures, and then he goes on a tire, and he goes a little above on like a hut thing, but that's not high enough. And then finally, Kevin Bacon, Fred Ward, I probably Fred Ward's best work, and the other people, they go on the rooftops of different buildings in order to escape these creatures. And then when they decide they cannot stay there for much longer because in the beginning of the movie, the creatures cut off all communication to that community, and they have to find their own escape route. They decide to join together a huge bulldozer with another truck, and they take them all together because that's too heavy for the graboids to pull on. And then they go on that rocky terrain, and that in the climax scene where they throw the dynamites. And the last graboid, where they actually show these creatures are pretty intelligent because they see how they duped the other graboid into getting them, and so he threw the dynamite back, and Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward is running, and then Kevin Bacon just waits for the graboid to come to him, and the last moment he falls off the cliff. Oh my god, it's pure unadulterated fun. That's what I love. Also, probably the coolest Kevin Bacon has looked in a movie besides Footloose, because always he usually plays these very serious characters. So Footloose and Tremors made him look very cool. So yeah, this is my number one by far.
that's awesome, man. And of course, I love it too. I had it a little bit lower on the list, but yeah, great pick. Well, man, I had a blast. It was fun. Thank you for being on.
My pleasure. My pleasure completely, Jay. And if anybody, if I may use your podcast a little bit to ask people to follow some of my work, I hope you don't mind that, Jay.
No, sir. No, sir.
Yeah. So if anybody is remotely interested in the world of uh, Bollywood, and if they wish to dispel a bit of their misconceptions, because I know many people think that Bollywood movies are only about singing and dancing, and that's actually not the case. We do a lot of serious stuff over here. So if they want to follow these reviews, if they want to get into Indian cinema in general, if they even want to follow the latest Hollywood updates, whether it be the box office, the reviews, they can check it all out on my Twitter handle. It's Russell underscore Olaf. That's RUSSEL underscore OLAF, Russell underscore Olaf. And I had a blast doing this, Jay. Thank you for having me. Your knowledge far outweighs mine when it comes to horror, so it was a humbling experience.
Well, man, I had a good time, and we will have to have you back on soon. We'll come up with something for us to talk about.
Sure, sure. Look forward to it. Look forward to it.
All right, guys, that's it for this week, and we will talk to you the next time we've got something worth talking about. Bye.
Bye, 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 Jay. Bye, everyone.